why did you decide to write this piece?
The reason is because I think it's very easy to have a point of view that, AI is essentially like a doomer prophecy, or AI is essentially a everything will be completely fine and we'll all just be very happy and satisfied. But not enough people were writing about what it means to go through the process of having something that you were very good at to now kind of be essentially be capable of being produced by AI. And it was a really interesting mix of, I would say, personal emotions and feelings that I went through. So I just penned something that came from the heart, and I think it kind of struck a chord with many people who are. I think a lot of us are going through that same kind of process over the last, call it, 6 to 7 weeks.
So, what is it that you're feeling? You were an engineer. You've been an engineer your whole career.
Yeah.
You have built these programs from the ground up. You've worked at the highest levels of these tech companies. What was it like for you to see these agents and these vibe coding tools do it for you?
I think it's actually just profound wonder to kind of start, because I think that ChatGPT came out roughly about 3.5 years ago. Coding agents came about seriously maybe about 18 months ago. And I think in that time period, every time I tried it out, I could use it, and I would have this mental kind of reaction like, oh, this is cool. It can do all the simple stuff, but it can't really make all of the things that I'm good at making, the kind of the complex interplay of data and compute and storing data correctly, making it efficient. Um, and to go from that sense of the AI is a good, junior programmer slash a good intern kind of programmer or somebody that can assist me, to now being able to one shot, end to end, produce things of high complexity. It was just a sense of profound, like, wonder that it could
Right.
actually happen. And once that happens, the second reaction that I had was actually a sense of grief, which is that this thing that I was world class at, this thing that I took a lot of pride in essentially being a part of my identity, even though I'm an investor today, I don't write code. I think there was a part of me that always felt as though I'm still a world class engineer. I can kind of, essentially hang it with the best. But to see AI now being able to essentially be at the same level of kind of what I can do, there was grief, there was sadness, there is a sense that something is being taken away from you. And that was the first initial reaction. And I sat, I think, with that grief for a couple of days before you kind of realize that, oh, if AI can do the things that I used to do, then what can I do now? And I think that it's replaced by a sense of um, just a sense of like manic energy, that every moment that I'm not actually essentially producing artifacts with code to automate parts of my job at Commons, automate parts of my personal life, it feels like almost wasted time because these tools are so capable and powerful.
You wrote this line in your piece. You said, if anything, this shift is teaching me what it is like to be human again. What did you mean by that?
I think that part of, I think, being in Silicon Valley in particular, and part of, I think, evolving your own, I would say, journey, your career, your life, is that I think there come these moments where you realize that the only option that you have is to essentially take a step up and essentially retrain and kind of in some ways ready yourself for the next part of your life. And I think this kind of change happens to us as humans pretty often as we go through, high school to college to your first job to your second job, and as we all kind of transform. And it was just a sense of, wow, the AI is in some ways forcing my hand to really introspect about what it means for me to be me. And I think that part of you finding your own personal identity over and over again is a deeply, it's a deeply human kind of emotion. And I hadn't quite felt that in such a powerful way for a long time, powerful and visceral way for a long time.
So the way that I understood what you're saying here, and correct me if I'm wrong here. I mean, I sort of read it as someone who is so senior in their career progression, and like we said, you were the CTO of Dropbox at one point. I mean, what it means to be human, I think at its core, is learning new skills and grappling with how you learn. Look, we're talking about vibe coding today. I was learning how to play the piano again a couple months ago, right? And it's that repetitive motion of getting frustrated,
Correct.
trying it again. And it sounds like to me, I mean, I hear your point around, being human, but for me, it's just learning a new skill that you have to, even if you're 60 years old, I mean, you have to do it now.
Yeah, it's a good. I like the way you phrased it, which is it is about learning new skills. But I think part of learning that new skill is confronting in a way that you might, in some ways you have to go back to a beginner's mind. You have to kind of go back and admit to yourself, I've been in Silicon Valley for 23 years. None of that shit matters, right? Like in some ways, I can lean on my experience, but I'm also starting at step one in some ways. So I think it is a reckoning with the fact that if I want to learn this new thing, I have to accept that my experience counts for a bunch, but it also doesn't essentially immediately allow me to do everything that I thought I could do in the past.
Hmm. How is it changing the way that you're hiring?
Oh, it's a great question. I'd say that my favorite, I'm giving this away, I guess, this is kind of my interview questions, but my most important question today is how have you used AI in your daily life? What did you use to essentially make your work life, your personal life better this week? What have you built for yourself? And a lot of kind of the underlying motivation there is that it's kind of weird. I've noticed that there's some people who are running towards this new technology and in some ways embracing the change, embracing what it means to learn something new, to be human again. And some people are really digging in their heels. And my initial reaction was that there would be some correlator there in terms of perhaps, hey, listen, the more senior people are more set in their ways, so what they want to do, keep on doing things the way they have. The more junior people, in some ways, they're free to learn new things. But what I found is that experience and age, these are in some ways uncorrelated variables. So what I'm really looking for now is someone's comfort level and adaptability and kind of a desire to use these tools to essentially reshape who they are and what the job is.
So in other words, it's a bit of an oversimplification to say, oh, the younger generation that is coming up, people who haven't learned, quote unquote, the older ways of software engineering. It's an oversimplification to say they are at an advantage, and that people who are later in their careers, they have a little bit more inertia to sort of fight up against. What you're saying is it's a mindset, and that you're looking for people at any point in their career who have really dug into this tool and say, you know what? I've been in Silicon
Here
Valley
I
for
am.
23
I'm ready
years.
to go. I'm ready to go, right? Yeah.
So then, but let me ask you this then. So how do you think that the curriculums in school compare this to when you were learning software
Yeah.
engineering 25 years ago? I mean, have you talked to people, professors, about how they're adjusting their curriculums and making it a little bit more, uh, application based or experience based rather than just theoretical?
It's a good question. I would actually say I've been thinking a lot about this. I don't have a very concrete point of view on this yet. I would venture that this might be counterintuitive. I actually think that learning the theory, at least in my profession, computer science, right? I think understanding the theory, the math kind of behind how a lot of these things work is still very important because it allows you to reason through what these underlying systems and models are capable of. But at the same time, I also think a lot of the small toy projects that I used to do in school that were basically wiring things up, that's dumb. Like the AI can do that, right? So in some ways, you want a barbell approach where I think you want to read, in some ways, the classics, like read the theory, understand the math, understand kind of like the theoretical underpinnings of, programming languages, compilers, systems, databases. And on the other side of the barbell, you should be incredibly, I would say, prolific in terms of what you are producing with that theory, right? And I think the middle ground is kind of where a lot of colleges are stuck today, which is that they're teaching you how to do things without a solid underpinning of the theory. They're kind of teaching you the craft, but the craft as defined 5 years ago, these agents can do today. So I would push kind of the curriculum to be more barbell. I don't think enough people are doing it today.
So
Um,
when people say that, "Oh, you don't even have to learn how to code today," you actually don't believe that entirely.
Well, I would rephrase it. I don't think perhaps you need to learn quote unquote how to code, but I do think you need to learn how the systems work, right? You should be able to, if you are a great engineer, even if AI does most of the writing of the code itself, you should be able to describe exactly what's happening in terms of how the data is stored, how the data flows, where the compute comes, where the constraints are, where the long pole is. But you don't need to write the code, right? In some ways. And then in some ways, understanding the theory and the systems allows you to be a much better, I would say, conductor of essentially the orchestra of your agents, if you will.
Right. Well, Aditya, I want to thank you for coming on. It was a great piece. That is Aditya Agarwal, a general partner at South Park Commons here on TI TV.